Welcome to this week's classic album. I am the Shakeman. This week we are featuring Quiet Riot's Mental Health album. Another album that came out in another great year. 1983 seemed to be the year to pave the way for great 80s rock and metal to follow. As we did in the past 2 weeks, two albums that came out in this same year, Def Leppard's Pyromania and Motley Crue's Shout the Devil. Mental Health was the third album to come out that year to help pave the way for all the great music to follow in the 80s. Different from the other two albums, this album managed to go to number one on the Billboard 200, replacing the Police's Synchronicity album, another great album, in November of 1983. This is the third studio album by the American heavy metal band, and it was released on March 11th, 1983, of course bolstered by the number 5 hit Come On Feel the Noise, which the band did not even want to record. They were against recording this song for the album, but the record company demanded that they record this song and release it. And, you know, when you want a record contract that bad, you will do what it takes to do that. So the band, against their will, did go into the studio and recorded the song for the album, and it went to number 5 on the charts and became one of the hit signature songs of the band. And of course, it was a cover song from the band Slade, which they would later on record another one of their songs, but that's for another issue. So after being the number 1 status album of the year, it sold 10 million copies worldwide and is considered a classic among heavy metal fans. The critics, the good old critics, such as AllMusic, of course, came into the mix and described it as a one-hit wonder, owing to Quiet Riot's relative lack of critical and commercial success with the following albums. They're always going to do this, ladies and gentlemen. Critics always, when you put out a great album like this, everything to follow, anything you put out after a great album like this, has got to be matched or better than that album, or the critics will be all over you, as you can see. So anyway, as I get towards the end of the late 80s, the title track and album was ranked to number 35 on VH1's 40th Greatest Metal Albums and Songs. The band went on to tour that same year with Black Sabbath during their Born Again tour in the U.S. Slick Black Cadillac is a re-recorded version of the same song from Quiet Riot 2. The song Thunderbird is dedicated to the guitarist and founding member Randy Rhoads. Although the bulk of the song was written for Rhoads while he was still alive, Kevin DuBrow added one final verse as a tribute to Rhoads after he died in a plane crash on March 19, 1982. The title track is known by a number of slightly different names. It was simply called Mental Health on the original vinyl release, but most other reissue albums and other formats called it Bang Your Head. With the phrase Mental Health either before or after the main title, the lyric from the song, Well, Now You're Here, There's No Way Back, eventually became the title for Quiet Riot's documentary in 2014. I particularly love this album. I think every song on the album is really, really good album. It's got 10 tracks. It was also reissued later on with a bonus track, Danger Zone, and Slick Black Cadillac Live, which was reissued, remastered in 2001. And then, of course, I had another remaster in 2012 that added some more live versions of the songs on the album and also the bonus track, Danger Zone. So the original that came out in 1983 featured Mental Health, starting off the album, which is the signature song, just from the opening drum roll going into the song, gets you psyched up for the rest of this album. Mental Health kicked it off. Come On Feel the Noise follows that. Don't Want to Let You Go, which is the ballad off the album, really cool flowing ballad on the album. Slick Black Cadillac, really cool tune. Love's a Bitch, Breathless, Run for Cover, one of the more upbeat songs on the album. Battle Axe, which is a really cool guitar solo by Carlos on this album. Really, really cool and well put together. Let's Get Crazy, one of my favorites off the album, which is really cool. And of course, ending with Thunderbird, which was the song that I just told you about that was dedicated to Randy Rhoads, one of the co-founders of the band Quiet Riot. So I really, really like this album. It's really paved the way for 80s rock. I enjoy every song on it. If you never really listened to the album all the way through, please give it a shot. Listen to it. You'll really enjoy it. And all you younger heads that I think is awesome that you guys are getting into the 80s rock. Either you grew up with it with your parents or you just see that the music out there in your generation blows. And you just, but I love to see the younger generation getting into the 80s rock. It's awesome. But, you know, if you guys don't have this album, get it in your collection. I definitely recommend it. It is a really, really awesome album, and definitely get it. It's definitely in the top 10 of my all-time albums of all time. That's going to do it for this week's classic album. I am the Shakeman. We'll talk to you next week with our next classic album.